Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Greg Brown from Foundry, excuse me. And I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about Moto 11, also some of the plugins that have come out recently for Moto, and finally, MotoVR. What you're looking at right now is an extremely talented artist. His name is Tor Frick, and he's somebody who has gained a lot of notice for Moto in recent years because he's been streaming workflows on Twitch. This time lapse is actually running right now at 6 times the speed that he works, which is kind of insane. This guy is amazingly fast. And what he's done is he's tailored Moto to his needs, and he's developed workflows that allow him to rip out concepts in 40 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. In fact, later on, I'm going to show you another time lapse with a plugin that he's been helping to develop where he makes a weapon in 38 minutes. And Tor is not necessarily a highly technical person in the sense that he's a scripter. He uses other people's scripts. And he uses Moto to actually modify the interface to allow him to create workflows that you really can't create any other way, allowing him to work incredibly fast. Now with Moto 11, we've made massive performance improvements. You can see right here, the scene is running over 10 times faster with over 7,000 instances. And Mesh Fusion, our real-time subdivision surface Booleans, absolutely amazing. We made big performance improvements by adding deferred updates that allow you to move a mesh, and it doesn't update until it's in the location you want it to be. And Mesh Fusion is another workflow-centric, along with technology-centric, tool inside of Moto that allows you to create things without having to know how to model, right? And allows people who have no experience to create extremely complex objects and enter the world of 3D content creation. And so this tool we absolutely love in combination with some of the stuff we're seeing plugin-wise from people like William Vaughn and also Tor Frick. Here in 11, we've added a new selection sets panel because being able to recover your selections quickly and easily is very important. So creating even item selections is quick and easy, as you can see here also. Now, our schematic view has had some improvements. Something very simple, schematic snapping. It's important to be able to organize your schematic quickly and easily, and schematic snapping makes that easier so that when somebody comes into your scene to do some work after you, they don't hate you for your disorganized schematic view, right? You can also select your source item, automatically selects your instances. Select an instance, selects your source item. Our spline deformer has had major improvements. You can see that twisting there in Moto 10. As of Moto 11, we have eliminated distortion entirely. Our spline deformer is absolutely wonderfully perfect. Now, here's another example for game export. We focused a lot on our game tools, and we wanted to reorganize our game export to make sure it's easier for people to develop the various presets that they need. And so you can have preset export to Unreal or to Unity, and you can tailor that as well, and also source, which is very useful, of course. So we want to make sure anytime you have to export your assets to an external game engine, we make it as easy for you as possible. And later on, we'll talk about some great stuff we've done with Unreal with a bridge. And Gargoyle, love this character. And on to a character from GadgetBot, a game called Kydra the Awakening, a VR game that just recently was shown at E3. They let us use some of their assets, and you can see how I can actually split my UVs with a split tool. I can sew them back together quickly and easily. So much more intuitive tools that artists can use without having to figure out the technical aspects behind it. You also can tear off now with a shortcut, making sure you don't have to move back into the menus to toggle things off and on, and bring it right back to its original location. And here's another speed model by Tor as well. We're using this to show off some of the UV tools. You now can preserve boundaries with the Relax tool, making it easier to work with hard surface UVs in particular. And also, something that I am so happy we have right now, I spent a lot of time in Mari, and now we can check where there's cross intersections and various different types of intersections in your UVs. Those of you who worked with UDIMs, like 40, 50, 60, 100 UDIMs, being able to have that checked automatically before you go to your painting application, massively useful. Now, this is an example of textile density. You can see how that barrel right there has much larger image on it, and that's because the UVs aren't scaled the same way. And our textile density kit can match the scale of other objects in your scene, helping you preserve textile density. Now, our advanced viewport. I love our advanced viewport. We've added cascade shadow maps along with control over those cascade shadow maps, so much higher quality shadows. And also, we've added line anti-aliasing, which is shockingly beautiful, actually. Once you actually are working in Moto, if you go back to the old Moto, you're going to actually find, like, oh, wow, I've been missing this all along. Having a more comfortable, more pleasant, more attractive experience in the viewport improves workflow, period. More comfortable you are, better off all of us are. And also now we have multiple different material types underneath the advanced viewport for full shading, basic shading, and also simple shading, so you can manage your scenes much more easily and be able to switch between shading as it grows in complexity. We also added texture filtering, which there is no option to toggle off and on, which improves the tiling of textures and the visualization of textures in the viewport, so you don't have any artifacting on your textures with really high resolution tiled textures. And now here's our Unreal Bridge. And this is actually an example from Epic. It's called the shooter game example. Great example of how to build an FPS in Unreal. And now I'm turning on the Modo Bridge. And what this is doing is it's firing assets back and forth between Unreal Engine and Modo without any sort of export of FBX or anything of that sort. It's a direct connection. And I can push this one selected mesh or the whole scene on over to Modo. And what we do is we tag all the polys with the same material names as you have in Unreal. And so if I make an edit, I make a whole new model, I'll assign the same materials onto that same model. Once I fire it back on over to Unreal, you can see it's adopted all the original materials I had there, making it quick and easy for you to work back and forth between Unreal and Modo. Now here's one that I didn't know how much I loved until I had it. Use polygon area for smoothing. You can see what a dramatic difference it makes when you have one large poly and a whole bunch of little ones around it. And of course, this can be baked to a vertex map so that when you send out your normals to a game engine, that's preserved and it'll improve the quality of your bakes. Another example from GadgetBot. You can see this character here. I'm going to go ahead and create a vertex map based on illumination. And so it's very quick and easy for you to be able to bake typical render outputs into a vertex map in ways that can be utilized in your game engines. So important to preserve efficiency. And also, we have the ability to do quick, proper bakes of various render outputs without having to do loads and loads of setup. By the way, that's real time. That's baking out in just a typical ambient occlusion map. And then, of course, I can use the advanced viewport with proper blending to multiply it on top. We also have auto topo. In fact, with auto topo, we have 3 different types. And so you can see with this model, you're able to calculate a very nice, dense, clean, uniform mesh. If I use curvature, it's going to localize my geometry into the edges. And so you can see right there, very different type, but useful in different situations. And then we also have a third type, which is shortest edge, which does a very good job of producing uniform sizes of polygons throughout your mesh and great at reproducing hard surface forms. Now this is Torfrick. This weapon he created in 38 minutes. That is insane. And he did this using a new plugin called Modo Booleans. And he built this plugin with the help of William Vaughn, another one of our most talented Modo artists out there. And what he's doing is they're leveraging our new procedural modeling system with the Boolean procedural modeling to be able to actually have a non-destructive Boolean workflow for rapidly knocking out forms. Now, what makes Tor so special is his understanding of how to modify our interface. You're going to see pie menus pop up, every now and then. I think he used like an MMO mouse with like 20 different buttons on top of it. And he's actually able to quickly iterate through all sorts of different forms and styles and make decisions very quickly because it's non-destructive and because it's flexible and it's fluid. And so being able to actually have talented artists like Torfrick hop into our application Modo without any scripting knowledge and start developing workflows like this so quickly and so easily, I think articulates what's special about Modo. And what's special about Modo is its accessibility. And that's because of the Nexus architecture behind Modo, where lots of different tools can be used together in interesting ways that you can't in other applications. And this allows artists to become familiar with Modo to start leveraging these tool sets in ways you usually wouldn't imagine, like our UV tools. We implemented our sculpting tools for UVs just because, hey, it worked because of the architecture behind it. But Torfrick is definitely one of my heroes, but he definitely makes me feel a little bit ashamed every single time I watch him work because he's just too fast, he's too concise, he's massively talented, but he's been teaching us all how to model in a new way again. And one of the things he pioneered was using an old feature in Modo called rounded edge shader, because since he's using low resolution geometry here, he wants to use the rounded edge shader to actually put nice soft bevels around those edges. And so you end up with almost game ready assets as long as you organize it in the right way from the beginning. Now this is Stein. This is a kit created by William Vaughn, and it's actually being shown here by Torfrick. Tor uses this kit too. Another amazing example of how somebody with some basic scripting knowledge can actually create an incredible tool. And what this is doing is when you select some polys, you can actually inject preset forms, and it automatically connects your geometry into the geometry around it. And this is mind-blowing. Like 15 years ago when I started modeling, I thought this is the type of stuff we were going to have in a year or two. And it's taken a very long time for the technology to catch up, but you can see the quality of the work that people are able to create just by leveraging tools that are inherent to Modo and then streamlining a little bit with some basic scripting, like artist-level scripting. And so, again, he uses our preview renderer quite a bit. And watch this one. Bam. There you go. Very complex object, created very quickly, very easily. This guy makes me jealous. Like, every time I see his work, I just want to go home and continue working. But this SpiderBot, great example of how an artist who learns how to use our tools can actually elevate their workflow. And by the way, make sure you check out his streams on twitch.tv. You'll see the link here. And make sure you go and check out Pushing Points, which is William Vaughn's website, where he has these kits, and check out all the amazing videos William actually does. Because I don't know if William sleeps. This guy produces incredible amounts of artwork, scripts, videos. Incredible guy, somebody I remember watching videos from even 15 years ago, But he still is performing incredibly at a high level. And so, again, the SpiderBot, the way he rips through just developing these forms, absolutely wonderful, perfect example of what I love about Modo. So, as we move on to some of the next sections, you can see right here that we have this SpiderBot, a final render of it. His texturing work is excellent, but it's also amazingly simple. He just uses various projections combined together to actually produce these nice, high-detailed wave forms. And go to twitch.tv/torfrick, check out his streams. It'll make you ashamed, but you're going to want to go home and work afterwards. All right, so now, MotoVR. Now, this is an example from the game Kydro, The Awakening from GadgetBot, of one of their opening dock levels. And I'm actually interacting in the advanced viewport, walking around, taking a look, assessing things in the way that I could in the game itself. And this, in conjunction with the Unreal Bridge, is amazing, especially if you're starting to think about working on VR titles. Because you can be working here in the VR viewport, which you see right here, which is a split screen, with the headset on, take it off, hop on over into the modeling viewport, and continue working. And now an architectural visualization scene, and you can see how I'm using the pinch to zoom functionality to actually pull the scene in and out and be able to turn myself around, and also teleportation, basic teleportation, to be able to let me actually navigate the environment. Duncan, the creator of MotoVR, was adamant he was not going to make people nauseous inside of MotoVR, and so the teleportation was very well implemented. And you can see I can just point my controller right up over that ledge, pop on down into the deck, and I can start navigating around and even see what the view is like from this hypothetical Malibu scenario, a place I will never, ever be able to afford to live. But I can imagine, and that's what VR is awesome for. And now for design. Car design. Of course you're going to lean down and look down the edge of a vehicle and see how highlights follow the form. It's also great just for assessing the quality of a mesh for 3D in general. And then pop on over to the back, do the same exact thing. And then I can teleport over to the middle and use my basic transformation tools to jump inside the vehicle and see how it looks from the perspective of a driver. Check out the rest of the vehicle from that perspective as well. I can guarantee you, you're going to have little kiosks and malls to let you take a look at cars without actually being there. And animation capabilities. You, of course, can play back any animation, which is great because seeing a character animated in front of you changes your perspective on every aspect of it. The quality of the animation, the quality of the deformation as well. And so as I come on around here, I'll be able to actually stop this animation, go ahead and step back or step forward for my frames and assess it frame by frame by frame, the quality of the animation deformation that I'm actually getting here. And I can just lean right in inside the arm and check out how I feel about the shoulder, things of that sort. And I absolutely love the ability to see characters in front of me when I'm so used to, for the past 15 years, looking through a window on a desktop. It never seemed to be that way to me until I started interacting in VR more. I think VR is truly the future of content creation. And currently, while we're focusing on review, annotations, and also layout of items inside of MotoVR, the next step we'll be taking is modeling, and that's going to be very interesting. So here's a character from Dota 2, a character I've been very familiar with for a long time. And I'm just, walking around her, taking a look at her from various angles. But seeing her in VR changed my perspective on this character because I've never stood in front of her before. I thought she was like 7 feet tall. She's 5'4". And so completely different perspective on this character and how I would interpret it. And what if I wanted to make some annotations to maybe tell an artist, what I think of like the shoulder armor right there. It's like, hey, I'm gonna just write right away, make smaller, draw an arrow to make sure they know where it's actually going. And I can actually use the annotations just to do a dirty, crude sketch of the proportions that I want to replace with the new model that I'm hoping the artist I'm working with is actually going to do. And this is just quick, easy, fluid, and natural. These are things that we would do in the real world if we were capable of actually doing it. And what if I decided, along the way, hey, I want to add some spikes, right? And now I can go ahead and just get the general proportions laid out and see what a much more talented artist is capable of doing with my basic layout as far as the scale that I want to change on this character. Now, what I love more than anything else about the annotation tools are the ability to photograph and save images as well. So now I'm in a basic island scene to show off some of the transform capabilities for layout. And so just checking out from the top of this ledge, which actually gives you a sense of vertigo. And I'm going to select some of these instance items. All these rocks in the scene are instanced items, and we're using the Unity shader right now. And I can grab this one rock from one side of the center handle and just pull it on around and drop it into place in a way that I'm happy with. I can use the 2D transform handles to help more precisely place items like that. And of course, select other items and keep on iterating on changing their shape, their orientation. And you can even do very basic things such as duplicate meshes or instance meshes. And so I think we're going to see a lot more emphasis on being in a real space while we work. Because if I can just walk around and grab a rock and put it in place and actually understand how I feel about it inside that space, that changes a lot of things. Even those walls, when I made those walls, I thought they were like half the size they were. But then the moment I was able to step into MotoVR, I'm like, okay, I screwed this up, didn't I? Like these walls are like 15 feet high. I wouldn't have really understood that as intuitively. Now, here's an example of using rigging along with command regions in Modo, where I built a basic rig that also is using locator tracking, so I can actually attach the rig to my controller. And now I have a custom rig built that's running animations on the car to flip and also changing the color. And I can drop my rig anywhere I want in the space. And since I do have transform capabilities, I can actually grab the original locator for it, and I can go ahead and scale it out. And instead of it being a custom controller UI, it's actually just a custom scene UI. And this is something I'll be talking a little bit more in some videos over the next week or two, telling users how they can actually do this in MotoVR, because it's part of Modo 11 as a public beta. And we want to crowdsource how you want to see a Modo, or how you want to see a VR UI implemented, in particular for modeling, because modeling in VR is going to be a very, very big topic. More locator tracking. Check this out. This is a great example that Duncan thought of. That freaks me out every single time. All we did was use the locator tracking on the HMD and made a basic eye rig, and so the eyes follow you. And so you can imagine if you had more complex of a rig, you can have a lot more functions. And last minute we were thinking like, oh, we need the Family Guy monkey with the finger pointing. Next time, guys, next time. All right, so the pulse rifle. It's a weapon I've seen all my life because I am obsessed with the Alien movies. Let's not talk about the recent ones. But you can see I can use locator tracking to align to my actual controllers, triggers line up and everything, and I can even swap back and forth with the locator tracking. And I can hold it just like I would in real life. I have satisfied all my adolescent fantasies at this point, and I can look right down, and you can see the difference on the side-by-side. You really don't understand intuitively how stereoscopic vision works until you're looking at it in this way. But I can assess it in ways I wouldn't be able to otherwise, which I think is just massively, massively cool. And let's go ahead and swap it back on over, and we can drop it right there in space wherever we want to. And now we have another scene from GadgetBot, from Kaider the Awakening, where actually what we wanted to do was we have a character that has modular armor, and the user can actually choose which armor to put on the character in the game. And so as you're developing this armor, you want to know how each piece of armor looks in random configurations. And so we're using replicators, which is Modo's particle-based instancing, to actually place random armor parts and iterate through that to see how the random pieces look when they are randomized. And I'm doing this just by moving that locator along X and building a super, super simple rig to actually manage that process. And so I think this is something that is extremely practical, extremely functional. And if I hop on over here, I can go ahead and select this chair right here. And I could actually use some of my cool snapping abilities as well. Now, if I go ahead and close this scene on down, I'm going to show you one last video really quickly. And that is another example of using these custom rig elements. And what lost focus means is that I'm not in Modo yet. Now I am. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a holodeck. And I wanted to create a design experience or a design review experience that a shoe designer might want to have. And I like the idea of holograms in VR because we can't touch everything in VR. So it kind of makes sense to make things slightly holographic. You know, it's more intuitive. And I've created these animations and rig elements that I can pull out by clicking on that one holographic arrow. I can change the colors on the shoes. I also can go ahead and do basic animations like throw on a quick rotate operation so I can actually see a turntable of the shoe and assess it from multiple directions. And also, I'm able to run what would be called a colorway function, which is organizing all the shoes in such a way that I can see them from multiple angles. And I'm just splitting that out into multiple instances, take a look at it from the back, see how I feel about it, and maybe step on back on over, close that on down, and play around with just checking out the turntables again, or just close my entire scene. And so it's pretty cool that we're able to actually build all this stuff in MotoVR. We've been working on the VR element of this for about a year, but all this extra stuff came for free. And the reason for that is because of the Nexus architecture behind Modo, how well everything inside of Modo plays with everything else, which I think is just absolutely wonderful. I mean, this experience of playing around with MotoVR for the past year has re-articulated to me after 15 years why I love 3D and why I'm still actually excited about it, which I think is just tremendously, tremendously wonderful. And the advanced viewport, as you can see, operating absolutely wonderfully. You're checking out how I'm actually able to, of course, change the scale of an entire scene. I can teleport right back down to my original scale and continue manipulating the scene as I want. And get out of teleport mode, hop on back into my item mode, and throw the whole scene back away quickly and easily. All right. Well, since we've gone through a lot of stuff so far, and it was all video, I want to actually have something a little bit more live at this point, right? And so we're going to shut this on down, and I have a scene open in Modo, the Archiviz scene. As you can see, we got this VR viewport right on over here. I'm going to go ahead and swap that on over and let that load on up. And now you can see these side by side. I'm going to give you a quick demo of how you would actually navigate in here, right? So I'll go ahead and throw my headset on. I can't see my controllers because they're not on just yet. All right, so I got my controllers. I'm a lefty, so I have to make everything difficult for people. And also, I have baked shadows in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn off the ones that are fighting with it. And so you can still hop in here, make changes to everything that you want to actually see. And so if I come over here, I can just use the go-to button just to pop on over wherever I actually want to. Let's make sure we're actually in here. And there we go. I can take a look at the kitchen. And if I want to actually just navigate around without teleport, hitting this teleport tool here, moves quickly and easily. Let's pop on outside. If I just hold my controllers out to the side, inside grips, pull these on out. And you can even do like cool things like basically spin around on top right there. And it's very, very quick, very intuitive as you continue working with it. Like what if I wanted to get over here to the kitchen? I can just pan right on over. I can then teleport back on down to the deck. And so this is a wonderful way of being able to utilize VR inside a full DCC application. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to see somebody here give it a try. Somebody want to give it a try? Anybody? Raise your hand. All right, there we go, man. How you doing? What's your name?
Matt.
Matt? All right, Matt. Here you go. You see your controllers? And don't worry, I'm going to spot you.
Okay, cool.
You see the inside grip controllers?
Yep.
Okay, you got them? All right, awesome. There you go. You need to iteratively pull in and let go, and pull in and let go over and over again. You're making it a little small. I would go all the way out, your arms all the way out, and then pull in. There we go. And do that a couple times. There you go. There you go. Now you get it. Yep. And then, of course, yep, you can do that spin right there. And if you look at your controllers, on your right-hand side, if you see the go-to button, right here up on top. VR requires a lot of touching. Should be right on top. There you go. You got it. Yep. All right. And that's the actual physical teleport tool as opposed to the actual go-to. And you've reached your maximum scale right there. And so you really can make the whole scene smaller, but you're not really going to be able to actually get bigger. And so, yeah, you can hop right on upstairs. And you can take a look at the kid's bedroom. And actually, the way this scene is built, too, it's pretty cool. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to demo it. Because of all the baked lighting, I can still go in there and change all the materials because of the way that the lighting was actually baked. I can do that in real time. There we go. Okay. So how are you feeling about it?
Pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. All right. Well, this just went into public beta yesterday. If you are a Moto 11 user or you pick up Moto 11, you will have full access to that. And like I said, one of the things that's most important to us is we want to pursue having full tool capabilities in a VR environment. And we think the best way to implement that is by talking with our users about how they want to see it actually executed. Because full DCC app subdivision style modeling is a challenge to implement in a VR environment. And we think by teaching you how to actually build these custom structures, we're going to make a better product and you guys are going to be happier. All right, so thank you so much. And last, let me thank a few people. I want to thank Duncan Hopkins, the creator of this. Absolutely amazing work from him. The guy's a super genius. And I also want to thank Jonathan Osment, who actually, he applied 600 textures in that Hydro demo because I had to export it all with the Unreal Bridge. And I'm like, dude, I need help. Can you assign textures for me? He's a great guy. Thanks a lot. Later.